just a little background, because a couple of you folks might be new. I've been teaching martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, mostly a better part of my life since I was 16. It wasn't until like the last decade or two that I realized I was actually learning other things. From martial arts, I learned psychology, I learned communication, marketing, all kinds of different things. But one of the more popular things that's come to be is this mindful-based stress reduction. And there's actually courses and classes you can take through colleges and other places. And it all comes back to martial arts breathing techniques, and Tai Chi and Qigong. And it's like, wow, I've been doing this for the whole time. I didn't realize there was a scientific study that goes along with it. So we've been doing the classes here for the last five months. We took off last month because of the hurricane. So we were going to do talk on bones. That got bumped to December. So today we're actually talking about breathing. Hopefully that still fits with everybody, sit and listen to whatever you're going to talk about anyway, Jim. So aside from our slide here, take a deep breath and relax, I would like us all to do that. And I just want to kind of set us up with doing a breathing exercise so that when I get further into this, I don't forget to do the breathing exercises, because we're talking about the physiology and some of the human behavior and stuff that goes with it. But it'll get us all kind of on the same page as to how we breathe, or how well we breathe, the quality of our breath. So what I'd like you all to do, instead of sitting back on your chair in whichever position is comfortable, I'd like you to scoot a little bit to the edge of your chair. And of course, you don't have to do this. This is all voluntary, and I'm not going to come over and, hey, come on, you got to do this. But this will kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes. So I'm sitting towards the edge of the chair so that I'm not really slouched or relying upon the back of the chair. Let's try to get the thighs level. So that means you might have to put your feet out a little bit farther. We don't want the feet tucked under, because that cuts off some of the circulation down to our legs and our ankles and toes, right? So I want to have at least flat, maybe even a little bit with the knee lower than the waist. So the shoulders are relaxed. You see me doing these little fidgeting things. What I'm trying to do is relax and release tension. All right? So breathing. Everybody breathes, but not everybody thinks about how they breathe. So there's different methods and practices. Take a few deep breaths, whatever you consider to be a deep breath. You might want to become aware if you're breathing through your nose or if you're breathing through your mouth. And I'll talk about that a little bit as we get further into this. Now what I'd like you to do is put one hand on just above your navel, so that's like your stomach region, and put the other hand on your sternum. And now again, whatever you think a deep breath is, try to take a few deep breaths. And after you do like 2 or 3 breaths, become aware which part is moving. Is your bottom hand by your navel moving, or is your top hand moving by your sternum? Ideally, we want to breathe through our nose, and we want to breathe from the diaphragm. So that means the bottom hand is what we're trying to get moved. If your top hand is moving, it means you're breathing somewhat shallow. It's not as efficient. And again, I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So again, after a few deep breaths, you're feeling, oh, maybe now you're breathing more from your abdomen, because I said it's good to breathe from your diaphragm. Or maybe not. So why don't we put our hands out on our knees with our palms up. Squeeze your fingers. Squeeze your thumb on top of it to make a fist. Now some of you might feel some tension in your upper arms now, in your shoulders, in your chest. If you're tightening that much, we want to relax. So let your shoulders relax, and they can move a little bit. Let your arms move a little bit, and open up your hands. So when you made the fist, you felt the tension. And then you release, now they're loose. So there's contrast. You can feel the difference. Shrug your shoulders. Try to touch your ears with your shoulders. So again, there's tension there. Relax, let your shoulders drop. So there's contrast. Sometimes you need to have a strong contrast to be able to see the difference. If I say right now, oh, just relax, and you're looking at me like I am relaxed. Why do I have to relax? I am relaxed. Well, sometimes we don't realize how much tension that we're holding. All right, so hopefully now you can go back to sitting however you want, back in the chair, put your feet up on the chair next to you if you want. Hey there, come on in. So we'll get started in just a second here. Let Alice come on in. Anybody have any questions?
What about breathing from both? I felt both moved.
You can breathe from both. Ideally, you do breathe from both because that will fill up more capacity. But if you move from the diaphragm, the lower portion of the torso, chances are the lungs and the upper part of your chest will be engaged more. It's when you go the other way. It's when you try to make your chest fill up, oftentimes it doesn't draw down from the diaphragm. So let's get started. Oftentimes when we say to somebody, we see them stressed, we say, hey, take a breath, relax. And what happens? The person usually takes a step back and goes, you relax. I am relaxed. Why are you telling me to relax? It's a very defensive thing sometimes when people say this, even though they mean well. So when I do my Tai Chi classes and Qigong, I'll start out and say, okay, we're breathing, let's do this exercise, whatever, and try to take away the attachment. So if I say, let's take a deep breath and relax during this discussion, it's not anything beyond that, just to get you engaged with what we're doing, okay? So again, if you have questions, please ask. So our past discussions have been general holistic health. That just kind of got everybody focused on what we're doing with this class. There's some physiology, some philosophy. I do touch upon a little bit spirituality, but most of it is, your physiology, how to do these exercises or how things are relative to your health. The next discussion was on hand and wrist exercises. Oftentimes when we get older, we start to lose the fine motor skills with our hands. That also has a direct effect on our ability to balance. If we're going to fall, it's good to be able to grab something if you need to. So all these things connect. Headache and stress, we did a class on acupressure points on the face and the neck and upper body to relieve tension in the face and head. Better balance is what we did last, when was it? September? It was September. We missed October because of the hurricane, right?
I believe today was better balance. That was the program in the newsletter.
We might have mixed up what the topics were.
That would be in December. Yes.
Well, the good news is on all these, I do record them. So if you want to go back and look at what I talked about, I say I and we kind of interchangeably, because again, I'm trying to engage all you folks to share with us. So we talked a bit about balance, not just the balance of walking, but how to maintain the health of your inner ear, how to stay active, make the inner ear stay healthy, your spine, the whole body in general. But balance is also your thought, how to stay balanced in your thought and outlook and things like that. So we got better breathing. Next month will be bones, how to make your bones stronger. So all these things, again, are connected. Spiritual and awareness, that's the one that I don't really get into too much. Everybody's got their own, philosophy of what they do with their spirituality. If you look at it as self-awareness, that's a lot of what I get into. It's being aware of yourself and your positioning, what you're doing. Physical health and fitness, that's another aspect. And then, your mental aspects. So this is a bit of a review, again, for some of you that weren't here, so you kind of know what we've discussed in the past. And I just went a little deeper with each of those different categories. And each one of those we talked about, more in depth last time. So let's come back to the breathing. How you breathe is a key aspect of your health. Not just that you are breathing, but how you're breathing. So if we look at different components, you got to breathe, right? If you're not breathing, you're not alive. But you can breathe poorly. You can breathe shallow. You can breathe all through your mouth. Those are different things that don't necessarily, make your breathing that efficient. So most people look at their breath. If you're breathing, that's good. It's like a switch, on and off. You go to the doctor, they check your breathing. Maybe they check to see how shallow it is, or if they hear noises from, obstructions in the respiratory system. But still, it's kind of like on or off, good or bad. But really, we can look at our breathing, if you look at the bottom here, is more of a gauge. So most people breathe throughout the course of the day about 15 breaths, 12 to 15 breaths per minute. And that's just with doing activities, just like I'm speaking right now. There's a certain rate or frequency that we need to breathe in order to function. When you sleep, it goes up and down. It might go as low as 8 breaths per minute, maybe, all the way up to 15. You're having a bad dream or something. So it goes up and down regardless. If you can control your breathing by slowing down your breath, like that first slide, take a deep breath, relax. If you can monitor and regulate your breathing and slow it down, you effectively start to control your thoughts and your emotions. And when you affect your thoughts and emotions, you're basically hacking your nervous system. And you're deciding whether you're going to be stressed or you're going to be relaxed or somewhere in between. And throughout the course of the day, you go in and out of that constantly. I think last time I said, like, if someone came in right now and slammed the doors open, everybody would be shocked for a second or two. Your heart rate might spike, and your breathing, you take a couple, what just happened? And then you realize, oh, it's, Bob, and Bob's looking for a chair or something. And then you kind of relax, and it takes a couple minutes for your nervous system to calm down again. Usually it takes a few minutes for you to slow down your breathing in your nervous system. Usually it takes a few seconds or very quick for you to spike your heart rate and your nervous system with your breathing if you're in danger or some, catastrophic thing happens. Okay, so the breath. Various cultures look at it similarly but differently. In the Western medicine and the United States, oxygen, inhale and exhale. That's kind of what it is. You're either breathing or you're not. In the Chinese culture with Qigong and traditional Chinese martial arts and
What is that, TCM?
TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. So they look at the breath as being the most powerful thing, that is where your life force. You lose your breath when you pass away. That's it. So qi, it's how you get the energy circulating through your body. Indian culture looks at it with Ayurveda. It's called prana or pranayama. There's different types of breathing exercises. You have the vital force from naturopathy, pneumonia, breath. So it's just different ways, different presentations of how people look at it. And then if anybody's ever meditated before, there might be, another 5 to 10 different names for your breath. But it's all basically the same thing. Without your breath, you're probably not breathing. You're not living. You're not getting oxygen into your body to, sustain all the cells. So here's a bit of a comparison between stress on the left-hand side and relaxing on the right-hand side. And we don't need to go over each of the little details with that, but basically if you're stressed, your body produces certain chemicals, hormones or neurotransmitters. When you're stressed, oh my gosh, the heart rate's going to increase, your breathing's going to increase. There's other things that happen. Your eyes, the pupils may get bigger so you can tunnel vision, see better what you're looking at. So on the left is all the different things that are when you're stressed. On the right is when you're relaxed. So you would think like when people are sleeping, maybe they're more relaxed. Not always, but like I said, sometimes you have stress when you're sleeping, nightmares, all that kind of stuff. But when you're in a more relaxed state, your body produces, for the most part, 4 main chemicals. You've probably heard of these in the news recently or in the last years. Dopamine. Dopamine is the rewards. It's like, here's your trophy. You won a prize. You feel good for that moment, and your blood chemistry changes. And then there's oxytocin, which is more of the nurturing, and you're around friends and family, your body produces that chemical. So that's sometimes why in a group setting you're more comfortable, you're more relaxed because you're around friendly people you care about. And then there's serotonin, which is how the body adjusts the highs and lows of your emotions. Like one moment you're really anxious, you got to go do something, then a couple moments later maybe you're depressed and sad because of something else that came. And then there's endorphins. That's the chemicals that are released when you exercise. You're doing physical activity, and afterwards you feel good. It's like, oh, I just did some hard work, I feel good. Yes?
I have a weekly appointment at the wound care clinic in Orlando.
Yes.
And I know that when I park my car, they're wonderful. The parking people are wonderful. But when I get in the front door, I'm in a wheelchair, and somebody needs to be taking me up. And I always know that they're not going to have transportation or a volunteer. And I know the girls at the front desk really don't care. So I'm intuitive, and I'm anticipating that going to happen. So I always have a smile on my face. I say good morning, but my blood pressure goes up.
Yep.
So when I get upstairs, I ask them to take my bandage off first, to give me a few minutes to do some yoga breathing. The other day, my blood pressure was 152 over 90, I think. I just did some yoga breathing. I didn't say anything to my nurse taker.
Yeah, you're able to control it through your
130 over
breathing.
60.
So you bring up a good point. Back on the left-hand side there, when you feel that you're going to be stressed, even the perception that you're going to be stressed, the anxiety going into something, you're going to have some of those chemicals that are released. And one of them, cortisol, is the one that, addresses your stress so that you can do whatever you need to do. Too much of that over the years, though, does start to cause other problems in the body. And then the one below it, where I'm looking at here for the chemicals, by the way, is right here. Norepinephrine is the other one that the adrenal glands release when we're stressed. So when you need it, it's good. It happens pretty quick. But if it's constant, it's like you're running your dishwasher all the time, but there's no dishes in it. It's like, well, you're not really getting anything from it. You're not getting the dishes washed that aren't in there, but you're wasting the energy in your electric bill, even though it's running. So that's kind of like, again, the thing with the stress on the left-hand side. You don't want to have that much stress that your body's constantly having to have those chemicals. So these are the different types of ways we interpret our environment, the senses. And this is, again, how we bring stress into the body. Through your eyes, you see something that you don't like, that can affect your chemistry. You smell something. We know how that is. Cats, dogs, pets, bad food. It's like it changes your body chemistry. I don't need to go through each one of these. You kind of get the idea, I would think. You eat something, it's going to change your chemistry literally from what you ate if it's bad, but also the thought in your brain. There's a reflex that we have when you eat bad food. If you get food poisoning from it or you get sick, you won't want to eat that food again. I thought it was just me, but it's actually a psychological reflex that you will stay away from that type of food because you know what you'll feel like from it.
Are you going to, in your conversation, talk a little bit about the difference between vestibular,
Here,
vestibular?
I was using my.
You're talking to other so other people can hear you.
I thought I got a big enough mouth. We didn't need this. If you would be so kind, if you're not going to do this, would you please do this? The vestibular piece. My patients are being taken care of by their GPs, not their neurologists, for vertigo.
Right.
And then they're afraid to walk out with their cane, their walker, whatever. Would you just describe the difference between vestibular imbalance and vertigo?
Yeah, so we actually talked about this a bit more last month or 2 months ago with balance. So the vestibular system over here, we touched upon that in that you have, the vestibular part of your eyes when you look at something, that gives you some stability that gets related to your inner ear where you have these water canals. They're in 3 different planes. So you have a stabilization of what your eyes see, and then the muscles and the joints throughout your body have these proprioception, that's this one over here, an awareness of space, force, and pressure on the body. So if you have where you're standing a little bit off like this, your ears will help you adjust to where you need to be. So it's part of your eyes, part of the inner ear, and then the spinal column with all the nerves that have those connections down to your feet. The way that I would tie that into our discussion on breathing is that when you slow your breathing down, become aware of your breathing, you become more in tune with that vestibular balance. It's when you're all scattered and you're all over the place and you're breathing short that you can lose that connection with your eyes and like where your balance is at and your footing. I was at the gym the other day. I go to the gym a couple days a week. I do Stairmaster and some other exercises there in addition to my Tai Chi routine. When I'm on the Stairmaster, occasionally I'll take a towel that I have with me and I'll wipe my hair or my forehead. If I cover my eyes for more than a second, I'm probably going to take a spill because you got to keep your eyes focused when your legs are moving. If you're standing still, you can, close your eyes and do whatever. But if your legs are moving, your eyes are closed, you better have a very good vestibular balance system. And again, it goes back to breathing, to be aware of that. Breathing is the key to being self-aware of your body. So this just kind of expands upon those senses. Everything that comes in your eyes, your work, career, health, family, some of you folks are retired, all those different aspects come into your eyes, your ears, your taste, all of them, and they get transformed into different emotions. Whether they're negative emotions or positive emotions, that depends upon the individual. And each different emotion can affect a different organ. You're sick to your stomach. You are grieving. You're angry. Those things connect to your heart, your lungs, your stomach. You see something that's repulsive, it's going to affect you. So this again goes into how we breathe. When you have all the stress going on from different emotions, we generally start to breathe more shallow because we're stressed. And going back to that other slide with the nervous system on it, if you're stressed, the breathing gets more shallow. If you're relaxed, the breathing gets deeper. So how can we make a conscious effort to have this come about? We're getting to that. So a small child, like an infant, will breathe with most of their lung capacity because they don't know any better. An infant doesn't have stress other than, it's like, oh, I got to eat. It's going to cry. I need to use the bathroom. It does what it does. I'm thirsty. That's how a child reacts. They don't really have the ability to adjust their breathing patterns, so they do it naturally. In our young adult years, it starts to retract a bit. We're not breathing from the diaphragm because people start to learn that they can talk and eat and interact with others without actually having to breathe deeply. So the breathing gets more and more shallow. By the time we're later in life, we're breathing in the top third. And that goes back to here. You divide the lungs into thirds. So most of you in the room here, unless you're doing something proactive to increase your breathing capacity, you're probably breathing anywhere from a half to a third of your full lung capacity. And that goes back to where your hands were at the earlier part, which was moving, the top hand or the bottom hand. So over on the side here, this just shows you a bit more of the pattern for abdominal breathing, which should come up. There's another slide later that'll get into more of the detail, I guess. Yeah, I know the slides, they're just not in the order in my head. So this is how the stress at the top affects the different functions of the body as we go down. A lot going on there, so I chose to break it into different ones. So your brain sees your brain processes what's going on with your senses and your stress or lack of stress if you're relaxed. If you're stressed, the adrenal glands start to release the norepinephrine or adrenaline into the bloodstream. So a little bit of science, the science of how this all comes about. And these are the things that are affected when we're stressed. A faster heart rate, faster breathing rate, increased sweating, blood pressure goes up, and tunnel vision, peristalsis and secretion of the stomach. Oftentimes when we're stressed out, our stomach locks up. It's like, oh, don't want to eat. I'm too stressed out. I need, don't eat. So that just kind of shows you how it goes from your brain, eventually to your bloodstream, and then into the different functions of the body. Does anybody have questions on this? This is all the boring stuff, really. It's the physiology, how it works, but it's good to touch base so you kind of see what we're talking about, so we're all on the same page when we start doing more aspects. When I start talking more about the aspects of breathing, it hopefully all ties in together. So the solution with managing stress are a few different things. You gotta be aware of your own fitness. Anybody want to go rock climbing? Marathons? We can do knuckle push-ups, backflips, stretch. It's good to know what level of fitness you're at so you can choose the appropriate type of activity, whether it's exercise or just breathing exercises. The quality of your health, the goals that you hope to reach, and your interests. Some of the stuff doesn't seem to be fun to people. When I'm teaching my classes, I often say, I really like this stuff. And I get the response like, you're really into it, Jim. We're just here for the exercise. You enjoy it more than we do. So, everybody's got their own interests with this stuff. And most of you here, you kind of see as you get older, your health is a part-time job. You retire and it's like, oh, I got all this time. You stop working. It's like, oh, I got all this time I can do stuff. And then you realize, I got to take care of myself. I gotta watch my diet, every meal, everything I put in my body, I need to keep an eye on. The types of activities. I'm sorry?
How are you driving?
Yeah, everything affects your health as you get older. So not to be Debbie Downer, just again, trying to get everybody on the same page with what we're talking about. So these are probably the three most beneficial things that we can learn, or hopefully you'll learn today, is to try to breathe as much as you can through your nose. Try to breathe from your abdominal, diaphragm breathing, and to slow down the breath. So I've been talking for about, 20 minutes, 25 minutes now? I'm talking fast. I'm breathing fast because I got a lot of material to go over. So I need to become aware, slow it down, breathe deeper. Yep, you all got it. Why is it beneficial to breathe through your nose? Your nose and the membranes inside your nose make up this, they call it the labyrinth. All these different surfaces give you more surface area for the oxygen to go over by the time it gets to your lungs. So it gets warmed up and it gets filtered. A few years back, 1998, these scientists discovered that there is a chemical that's produced when you breathe through your nose. It's called nitric oxide. Not nitrous oxide. That's the laughing gas one they give you when you go to the dentist, or I don't know where else, it's like it keeps you in a awake state, but you're like happy, right? So nitric acid is this molecule that's produced in the nose. There's supplements you can get also, but through your nose. And in the process of breathing through your nose, all these other things are affected. Your vision, your respiratory system, the endocrine system, your immunity, functions of the brain. So not only is it good for those things, you're breathing through your nose, but it also encourages the body to breathe deeper from the diaphragm. When you breathe through your mouth, oftentimes it's more like a sucking, very shallow. When you breathe through your nose, it makes you slow down, and consequently you'll breathe more from your diaphragm. Very good. Very good thing that happens to the body. Plus all the veins and arteries dilate so as to increase blood flow. So again, this is some of the boring physiology stuff, but we gotta cover it. So this is how the abdominal breathing works. When you breathe from the stomach, you create a negative pressure that draws the air into the lungs. When you squish, the diaphragm goes up and it pushes the breath out. How do you do that on a regular basis? There's muscles in your body that help you to do that. It's not just the diaphragm muscle, but there's other muscles on the sides that engage with the lungs, even muscles in your neck. And I was talking about it in my Tai Chi class a couple hours ago. When we turn the head side to side and you have the muscles, the sternocleidoid mastoid muscle and the scalenes, they help your head turn. But when you're breathing, they also lift the upper part of your lungs. The top couple ribs are connected to those muscles. So when we think about just moving our chest or the diaphragm, we also have to take into consideration some of the muscles in the neck help with our breathing. So this shows some yoga guy. He doesn't have any clothes on though, right? Doesn't have any bones or any muscles on either. So the twisting of the spine actually helps with a bit of twisting of the what do you call those? The costal, the sternal, what is it? Sternocostal joints.
Yeah, sternum.
And then on the backside, it's the costal vertebral joints, I believe. Well, regardless, the physiology of it. When you twist your body somewhat side to side, like this, the joints in between all the ribs stay more flexible and elastic. So when most people exercise these days, say you're going to the gym, you're swimming, you're walking, it's a very straight, linear type of method to exercise. If you practice Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates, some other stretching where you get the spine to turn like this, that's highly beneficial in keeping the lungs and the bones more elastic. Don't do that twist unless you're comfortable doing that or you've learned it, just to go home and like put your leg across and do that twist. Some of you might not fare as well with it. So this goes back to the different types, either the fight or flight or the rest and digest. On the left-hand side, there's some activities that show you how you get your heart rate up, your breathing rate to increase. On the right-hand side, some activities to slow it down. A lot of information. I don't expect you all to remember these. Usually I print out some of these. Today I just kind of ran out of time, so if you need any of these, I'll bring them in the future. So we all have our own inner pharmacy. Who enjoys going to CVS? Walgreens, Costco. Is it any fun? Come on, it's all, you got to go through the whole routine, right? And you got to spend money going to the pharmacy. For us, we have our own inner pharmacy. When you practice deep breathing, whether it's yoga, it's Tai Chi, Pilates, walking, swimming, weight training, any of those things, you can manage your breathing when you do the exercises. So this gets us back to these four chemicals. Those are the main. Every day you try to get your dose. What do they call it, a fix? Drug users, you got your fix, you got to get your high. Well, this is the positive side. This is the other side of it. It's the dose. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin. I talked about this a little bit earlier, what each one does for you. Rewards for dopamine, oxytocin, you feel comfort, nurturing, being around people you love and care about. Serotonin, the mood stabilizer. Endorphins, the body's natural painkiller. So that's a term that comes up quite often when we practice breathing exercises. Another complicated thing to look at. So if we're going to breathe, let's see, let's go back to that. Right now, most of you sitting in the chair are probably around 15 breaths per minute. If you've been taking my advice as we're doing this and a couple deep breaths here and there, you might get down to 10 breaths per minute. So like, how do you do this? What's all the math? If you're just consciously thinking about slowing down your breath, if I give you a cadence, like right now, I say breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. That right there probably got you down to 10 breaths per minute. Anything below 10 breaths per minute, you just tricked your nervous system into thinking you're more asleep or relaxed than you are stressed and anxious. So it doesn't take that much. You don't need to worry about all the math. But again, if you just are aware of slowing it down. If I put a pause before and after each part of the inhale or exhale, we get down to about 4 breaths per minute, which is like meditation, which is where your body is becoming very calm, very relaxed. We'll come back to that as we get a little further with this. So again, you got to find for yourself. If you're interested in longevity and maintaining good health as you get older, you got to be aware of your level of fitness, the quality of your health right now, the goal, what's the end result, what you're looking for, and what interests you. Is anybody getting more interested in learning Tai Chi or Qigong? Or, you know, I got a class here once a week. We do it every Thursday, 11:30 to 12:30. But like I said, these aren't the only activities. If you watch your breathing, if you're aware of your breathing when you're walking, walk around the neighborhood, just try to slow the breath down. If you're in the pool, try and slow the breathing down. You can do it with any of the exercises that you choose. What also happens, I think this just, again, kind of breaks down the different math with it. I don't think we need to go over that more. So for those of you that are a little more advanced with what I'm talking about, and you're already practicing different breathing methods, meditation, this just kind of, again, breaks down what abdominal breathing is compared to the others. And then this bottom left-hand one, there'll be a bigger image here too. Where did it go? There. Here's where you start to get into more of the philosophical aspects of breathing. So remember earlier I said when we breathe, oftentimes people think of it just like yes or no, on or off. Your breathing is just like one or the other. This is a bit of a demonstration, or demonstrates how you would breathe, bringing awareness up your spine, over to the top of your head as you inhale. As you exhale, you try to have an awareness going down the front of your body. I've done that a couple times with our class. Usually it's, you know, another way just to be aware of how you're breathing. Let's go back though. So I'm giving you the heads up on all these next ones. This one might be too small to see. If you breathe deep for 3 minutes, I also said, you know, meditation. Meditation and breathing are sometimes interchangeable. Not always, but for this. If you breathe for 3 minutes, your circulation and your blood chemistry is changed. It takes 3 minutes. If I ask you, take a deep breath like we did at the beginning with our hands on the chest and that, if we don't do it for a minimum of 3 minutes, the blood chemistry does not change that much. If I sit down and say, okay, there's a fire outside and there's a hurricane coming, we got to get gas, it'll take mostly a couple seconds for you to go the other direction with the body chemistry changing. So 3 minutes to make it more relaxed, less stress than more stress, right? If you can practice deep breathing for 11 minutes, you start to affect your pituitary system in the nervous system. 11 minutes sitting still is usually a little more difficult for people. 22 minutes, you start to get into more aspects of your mind and distractions. You're trying to sit still while there's distractions that just start driving you nuts. I don't know if any of you have done meditation for more than a few minutes. next 62 minutes or 2.5 hours, it gets to be pretty challenging. Anybody up? We'll do that next class if you want. Usually in my classes, we do 3 to 5 minutes of any particular breathing exercise. I'm sorry? Yeah, pretty difficult for most people unless this is something that they're actively pursuing. You don't just sit down and do a 2.5 hour meditation. It doesn't, you got to build up to it. So here's the breathing method I was talking about, the 4 seconds. If you take 4 seconds to breathe in, we can do this now as I'm speaking. Hold the breath for 4 seconds. You don't have to necessarily count, but just put that pause in. And then take 4 seconds to breathe out. And then you wait another 4 seconds to breathe in. So that method is called box breathing. And it's probably been around for thousands of years with monks and martial artists practicing these meditation exercises. It became called the box pattern a couple decades ago with the US Navy SEALs. And they found probably one of the highest stress occupations you can have is to be a Navy SEAL, I would think, right? There's probably a few others, but that's high up there. So I don't know if the scientists, doctors, the individuals themselves, they came up with that term, the box breathing. And it's just like you're thinking, you can think in your thought, if you were to stand sideways, you're 4 seconds in, all the way up to here, you pause, 4 seconds to breathe out. There's a pause, 4 seconds in, pause, 4 seconds. So there's the box. It gives you a pattern to focus your thoughts on while you're doing the breathing exercise. So it's a very good technique. These are other movements that we've done in our class, different arm positions, affect the muscles. The muscles affect the circulation of blood and energy in the body. And that gets into traditional Chinese medicine where each one of the different hand positions represents. This one here, it's like you're holding the earth. This one's like you're holding a ball, a cannonball, so it's metal. This one, like your hands are in the river, it's water. This one, your hands are like branches, so it's wood. And this one, you're embracing, that's fire, I believe, like you're in front of a fire and you're warming your hands up. So you have breathing exercises, but then there's mental exercises to help keep you engaged. Because if you're just trying to breathe deep for a couple minutes, it does get boring. It's like, what am I thinking about? Thinking about my breathing. But if you're thinking about, oh, there's wood, there's fire, there's metal, it gives your brain something else to focus upon. Any questions so far? I know some of you are breathing really deep and you're getting really relaxed right now. Got the lights down, got the slides going. So again, that was just that other pattern where you go up the spine and down the front. And there's just more detail. So some of you are familiar with traditional Chinese medicine. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. If you've come to some of the other classes, you've met Biff. See, let's put Biff out. So best friend for life. And he's right next to our little toy too, the transsegrity toy. So the idea with traditional Chinese medicine is that we have all these lines up and down the body. They run from the fingertips to the toes, from the top of the body all the way down. And each different line represents a different organ. So this right here is the lung, the heart, and the pericardium. Three of the they're all important, right? Every organ is important, but these three are the ones that affect our stress. So why is that relevant to what we're doing here? This is a little exercise you folks can all do on your own. When you practice Tai Chi, there's a fair amount of times when your hands touch your pulse. And it's not just on accident. By the pulse points, you have the lung meridian on the top, which connects to your thumb. The middle finger, don't give me the middle finger, come on. That's the middle finger, that's the pericardium, the sac that protects the heart. And then the little finger has an attachment to the heart. Lung, pericardium, heart. All three of them run through the wrist up to the forearm. So if you practice just touching, you're kind of like shutting off a valve, and then you release it. The valve opens up, everything flows. Everything in this case is blood in your energy, your chi, like I had talked about earlier in the slides. So if you want to practice it on your own, you can try to touch all three of the points with your fingers. And it's kind of awkward. You got to come up with that triangle. That's why it's called the Buddhist triangle. Or you can just put all three fingers from your other hand over that spot. So the way you would practice it, not practicing Tai Chi, would be to take a deep breath through your nose, and when you push, breathe out, push on those 3 points. Release the points, take in another deep breath. As you breathe out, again, it's like you're taking your pulse, push on those three points. And then if you'd like, you can switch to the other hand and do it on the other wrist. So just the process of doing the deep breathing is relaxing. The process of being aware that you're doing deep breathing and touching pressure points on your hand is somewhat relaxing also. So you're doing like 2 or 3 different things here. A little bit of a breathing exercise, a physical exercise that regulates your circulation, and an energy exercise. You're cutting off the energy and letting it flow back and forth. We practice Tai Chi. It comes up in a whole bunch of the exercises where you're touching those points. But you can do it on your own. You don't need to come to my classes to be able to do that. So let's keep going. Oh, just to highlight what that said on there. Doing that acupressure calms your emotions, helps relieve sadness, depression, anxiety. Sounds like good stuff, right? So again, to review the 3 effective actions that you can do from today, if you can pick up on this and try and do it more on a regular basis on your own, breathe through your nose, breathe from your abdomen, and try and slow down the breath. So these are some of my past classes here. Some of you are familiar with that exercise. We stood there and did that last month. That's the acupressure and wrist stretching. And here's me talking about tension and what else? Spine, curvature of the spine, tension of the spine. This was at the University Club a couple years ago when we first got started. That was an introduction to all the holistic health and Tai Chi and standing on one leg. So just to give you guys the variety or idea what the variety of topics are, and that was one of the other classes we did in the big room on acupressure and reflexology. Now I can take a deep breath. I had to make sure I was done by 2:45, and I'm 1 minute early. Made it through all the slides. So does anybody have any questions? Time to turn that light on. Pwee. Yes.
Microphone?
Who's got Mr. Microphone?
I do a lot of this deep breathing stuff when I'm lifting weights.
Definitely.
And I remember from the olden days, they used to tell us to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I know you tell us breathe in through the nose and out through the nose.
Yep.
Is there any particular reason why they wanted us to do that
Yes.
a different way?
Definitely. So always breathing through the nose gets the warm filtered air, slows down the breathing, gets the diaphragm moving. I touched upon that. When you breathe out through your mouth, for some people that's a more comfortable way to breathe, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathing through the mouth, out through the mouth, you'll dry your mouth out though. After so many breaths, your mouth becomes dry, and then you're licking your lips and you're trying to, I need some moisture. So it's a bit of a distraction when you're practicing exercises, you're weightlifting, your mouth dries out. So as much as you can through the nose keeps the mouth moist, because you activate your saliva glands when the mouth is closed and your tongue moves. So that's a benefit for that. From an energetic point of view, having energy, if I was going to, all of a sudden I have to move these tables, I gotta move them quick. I'm gonna breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. It's very rapid, and what happens is it's not as deep, it's more shallow, but it's more powerful as far as the body being able to move and use the energy very quickly. I don't recommend that kind of breathing on a regular basis. It's more for emergency type situations. So does that cover?
I think so. I just didn't know whether that breathing out through the mouth was something specific that you have to do with weightlifting. Or
Not so much.
The other thing is, if your mouth gets dry, then you're going to hydrate. So maybe that's a good idea.
So you're going to keep getting water regardless if your mouth's drying out. Years ago, we didn't have that option. We didn't have water everywhere you go. When you went and jogged for, a couple hours or whatever, you did it, you came back, then you hit the water fountain. We didn't have jugs and water at all the time. Hold on one second though. If you breathe through your mouth, all through your mouth is the least efficient and actually can have other side effects that are not that positive. And I know sometimes, especially like in Florida with allergies, I have allergies, you find it difficult to breathe through your nose, so then you're resorting to breathing through your mouth. So again, it's shallow, it's not as efficient. But it's, again, the chemistry that changes from you breathing through your nose is much, much more important. You got to try to do that. If you're in yoga or some of the other meditation practices, they'll do like one side or the other, where you inhale using one nostril, and that actually switches on a cycle throughout the day, where one nostril is more open than the other one. It's on the circadian rhythm, I believe, where that changes. So again, just to kind of take it another step further, if you're really wanting to get into how I can breathe deeper and affect my nervous system, maybe heal some different types of illnesses or diseases you have, your breathing is a very major part of that. And learning different practices, one nostril, the other might be one. That fire breathing I was talking about, up the spine, down the front, there's a lot of different methods that are very advanced if you want to go down that path with them. So I think I covered it in a little bit more. So, and Alice, you had another one?
Yeah, I do.
When you are doing yoga breathing and you breathe through your nose, you're expanding your stomach. When you breathe out through your mouth, it coerces you to know that you're retracting your stomach. Try that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a very important piece. You're breathing differently than we normally breathe.
Right.
In through your nose and out through your mouth. It does have all the different factors that you talked about your mouth, and then you need to hydrate, you're right. But it helps you with your abdominal part, which is not your normal way of breathing. I do this all the time.
Yep, definitely. There's a book on the shelf over there called Breathe by James Nestor. It's in your library for those that are here at the University Club. Really good book. I recommend reading it because it gets into more detail about what I'm talking about with the nitric oxide, the other physiological functions, and also the shape of the mouth. When young children start to breathe through their mouth and their body's still in the formative, phase of their life, that can adjust their teeth and the whole structure of their face if they're breathing more through their mouth than through their nose. And then, that can affect other things with eating and appearance, self-esteem. So breathing through your nose is really an important part. So I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No. I learned a breathing sequence where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 7 seconds, and you breathe out for 8 through the mouth.
Yep.
I think I like yours better, 4, 4, 4.
There's all different ones. And the one that works best is the one that you do consistently.
Right.
So, and some might help you a little bit more in this area or that area. A lot of variables to the math, how much you hold for how long and how you let it go. The idea with exhaling more than what you take in is kind of like a circle, in that you're trying to push out more breath so that your inhale starts to become deeper, almost like you're gasping. And then that next exhale, it'll again be shorter, but you're trying to make each part longer and longer so that it keeps building upon itself. You're never going to get to like a terminal point where it's like, well, I'm holding it for a minute and I'm exhaling for a minute and a half. You're probably not going to get there, but just in the terms of seconds, you're trying to push out more so that inhale will be deeper.
I do find
And then you repeat it.
breathing that way, it really slows down my heart rate. So
Any of the different methods like that, just not that you want to get hung up on the math, but you can start to see it. It's like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 3 seconds in, 3 seconds. Any of them, they're still slowing it down dramatically more than just your regular breathing, which is 12 to 15. So
I like the what did you call it, the
box breathing.
Yeah, it seems more balanced to me, so
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that.
It has symmetry to it, which is definitely a yin and yang principle that we cover a lot in my classes. And it gives you something to think about. When people are just thinking numbers, sometimes that gets to be kind of boring. Like I say, okay, let's do 1 through 8. It's like, okay. Or we can do ward off, roll back, shoulder, elbow. And it's like, oh, now there's words. And then your brain has something bigger to anchor upon than just a number that really doesn't distinguish it from something else. So that concept that I'm talking about, now you're starting to get more like the psychology of breathing, not just the physiology. It's like, how am I thinking I'm going to breathe deeper to make my physiology change? Does that make sense?
Yeah, if you could teach me how to turn off my thoughts, I'd appreciate that too. You don't want to have my
It
thoughts.
comes from having something to anchor on when you're doing it, like the box breathing. So when we'll do the Tai Chi class, the philosophy or the themes that go with it, they have a number, they have a name, like an action, and then there's a philosophy. So this is number 1, which is called ward off, which is heaven. Number 2 is roll back, which is earth, because you're grounding, you're sinking down. So it's number 2, it's grounding, it's earth. And then we have mountain, because it's solid. The bottom of the mountain is the canyon, and then the water flows down. So that's kinetic linking. Shoulder, elbow, wrist, which was 4, 5, 6. So you're not going to remember the number so much, but you might remember mountain or heaven, right? So again, it's giving you something psychologically, something to anchor your mind upon. If you're just thinking about breathing, I got to breathe slower. Okay, slower. After a couple of breaths, you're just in a loop, and it's monotonous. So you got to have an anchor.
Thank you.
I hope that helps. So does anybody else have any other questions? We got a few more minutes.
Yes. So suppose somebody finds out or feels that it's stressed and consciously wants to reduce the stress. What is the exercise recommended? Is it breathing? Is it touching your wrist or pressing on your wrist? What is it?
So that sequence that I went through, first off, you're stressed. Try to close your mouth, which might help in more ways than one, because it'll stop you from saying something that might make you more stressed from the results, right? Like, Paul, no, close it. So that takes away that stress of me putting out negative energy to address Paul. That gets me to breathe deeper because I'm breathing through my nose, which gets me to breathe through my diaphragm, which will probably be slower now that I'm aware of it. So that really is the sequence of 3 that is the most easy. If you want to add this onto it, I'm aware that I'm stressed, I'm breathing through my nose, I'm trying to slow it down, let's do this one. So it gives you something, again, to take that thought that I had going towards Paul and put it over here. Because I'm thinking about that more than Paul. This requires more effort for me to be here than it does for me to be over there. Okay? And then if you want to take it to the next level, then you do the box breathing. And while you're still, standing, sitting, mouth is closed, breathing from the diaphragm, slowing the breath down, touching the pressure points, and now I do the box. Pull in for 4, pause, breathe out for 4, pause. So I'm creating that box in my mind as if I'm looking from, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Mary? Marie. As if Marie is me, and I'm looking at me from where she's sitting, and I see that box in my thought, not with me moving my hands. So that's like 3 levels. Nose, diaphragm, slow down. Okay. Pulse. Press the pulse, release the pulse. Okay. I'm aware of what I'm doing, box breathing. And that gives you a couple different things that you can pyramid or stack from one to the next. And then if you wanted to, next would be do Tai Chi exercises if you knew those, or some type of yoga exercise where you're putting your body into a position that, again, is requiring your thought to be here instead of whatever the stress is out there. We spend a tremendous amount of our life being stressed about what's going on out here. And that's what those senses, the 5 basic ones, and then you have other ones, temperature, pressure, where your center of gravity is at, awareness, just somebody's looking at me. You guys are all looking at me. No, the sense that you can tell if someone's watching you. You've done that like in public, and you're like, yes, he's staring at me. Those different senses, everything that's looking out is what our body is adjusting to. If we spend a little bit more time listening to what our body's telling us, where we're standing, where our center of gravity is at, how much stress we have, how much stress we're holding in our face, those different things, internalize a little bit. Then you can start to adjust them with the breathing. So it kind of goes both ways. Then you have other people that are all in their head. All their stress is from here. You know, my bills, the weather, retirement, what medications I'm on, it's all here. So then it's good to do something to get you out of that, which might be exercises, activities. University clubs got a ton of activities that gets you out of your head. So it's not a one-way or a all, can't fix everything with the same tools. I'm looking for a better wording with it. Not everybody's the same. Everybody's got an individual, situation with it. Hopefully I covered it in one of those. Yeah, another comment?
I do. This is a repetitive.
Got Mr. Microphone coming.
Thanks. Okay, thanks. This is a repetitive thing for me that I do because I know what my schedule is. I'm dealing with bills, stress, my board, whatever.
That's all
prior
this.
to coming here.
Yep.
When you get in your car, be very mindful of, we're hooked up to our Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
Be very mindful of not taking any calls that you don't recognize that it's going to be a joyful call or it's going to be a nice call. Be very careful about that because when you're in your car, it is a time when there's a light, a very long light. I'm thinking about Maitland Avenue.
Sure.
I'm thinking about 436 and 1792. It's a horrendous light. I always will yoga breathe if I happen to be going in that way.
So the 3,
Yep,
breathe through your nose,
right.
breathe from the abdomen, slow down. You can do that pretty safely, whether you're in traffic or it's moving. Don't do the pulse while you're driving,
No, let's
okay? Don't do Tai Chi while you're driving. Box breathing, it might be a little too much drawing of your awareness to think about what's going on. You're counting breaths in your head or the pattern, but definitely slow the breathing down and close your mouth. Other things to consider when you're driving, go back to some of the other classes with your posture. If you got your wallet in the back pocket, it's terrible. If your hips are out of alignment, arm up on the window, usually starts to throw the spine out of whack over decades of doing it. So being mindful of your body while you're driving, in addition to your emotions when you're in that situation. Yeah, forget about the phone, put it away, don't touch it. So any other questions, comments? Because we're going to wrap it up. So this was breathing. This was supposed to be breathing, but we touched upon some other topics. And then again, next month we'll come back to the bone health, bone strength, how to prevent osteopenia, osteoporosis through exercise, diet. I don't really encourage pharmaceuticals too much unless that's what you need to do for your particular situation. All the things we've talked about, the headaches, the hand exercises, balance, they're treatable or maintainable. Again, I'm not finding the right word for what I'm trying to say. You can manage them to some degree through exercise and diet and lifestyle, but not everybody. Not everybody's the same. Some need other help with doing it. So do you have some other comment? Or Paul?
So we're all of a certain age here, and some of us have not been breathing the way you're talking about for probably a large part of our life. Do you think it's realistic for somebody that's my age? I'm 65. If I start adopting these things now,
Definitely.
that you will see improvements even after all these years of adopting?
Okay, so I'm 60. I'm in the club. I'm the oldest one in the room. I know that. There's a graph that I'll draw if I have a board to do that. But if we're going this way. So when we're young, everything is on an upward trajectory. And then there comes a point where it levels off, and then there's the downward trajectory. And that, again, changes for everybody, but let's just say 50 is when the trajectory starts to go downward, where you're not as strong, you're not as quick, everything, right? All the different aspects of health. So we're not necessarily trying to make it go from the downhill slope to back up, like when we were younger and the trajectory was going like a skyrocket, right? What we're trying to do is make it so that it's not as quick declining. So maybe we're getting, the curve to be a little more of a slope instead of, a nosedive. So there's always room for improvement. I've learned this, I've said it, you're never too old, to learn new things, whether it's physical or mental. The breathing aspect, some of you already were doing it just in the class with me talking about it and you becoming aware, like, oh, there's more to this. Twisting, bending, pulse, Breathing through the nose. It's like some of those were new concepts for some of you. So you're probably already benefiting from it. Now you got to practice it. So every night when I go to bed, I've been doing this for years, and I really didn't put much thought by it, but I put my hand on my diaphragm, I put my hand up by my throat. And it's like my little routine when I try to get myself to fall asleep. And there it is. My stomach's moving. My mouth is shut. I'm not talking. I'm winding down my conversation for the day. So I got my hand on my throat, and then I usually fall asleep within a few minutes or so. But it's the stomach that's moving. So the reason I bring this up, because this has a direct connection with chakras, which are in Ayurveda and yoga, in that you're aware of the different energy centers of your body. And down here, the lower part is more about getting things done, and your intent comes from the stomach. By the time you get up to your throat, that's about communication and how you talk to people, how you make a difference by communication skills. And then by the time you get up to here, it's mental. How do you see things? How you see things. It's kind of more of a mental aspect. And then above that's the crown. That's how you understand things. It's like, okay, I got it.
I do chakra.
That's chakra awareness or chakra breathing.
Chakras, they start down below, they're up to your brain. When you walk out of the house of any given day and you haven't consciously thought about what color you put on, look at what you put on for the day, because chakras have colors. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's a topic for a whole other class. So aside from finishing this up, we're done for this month, but we'll talk about bones, like I said, and then going into the new year, talking with Jeannie, and I don't know who else the powers that be, we're going to take a break because there's other health discussions or science discussions that are going to be happening.
Yeah, in January, Steve is going to tell us more about quantum mechanics.
Yeah, so for me, if you guys like my classes and you like what I talk about, please voice your opinion to the powers that be at the University Center, because I have a few more topics to talk about, but I only have an hour each time we do this. So chakras could be a whole class.
That is a great class.
Yeah, back exercises could be a class. Knee exercises could be a class. You look through some of the stuff on the table there and you can see, oh, there's a little bit of information. Well, each one of those bits of information is probably an hour worth of information at the very least. So that's it for today, unless you got something else.
I just want to say, not to offer you any competition, but the Crosby does every now and again a 3 or 4 week class on chakras. So if you belong to that, you might have a look at their thing and see when the next one. I know they were having one. I think it's just finished. So
Who does that?
the Crosby Center.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of us go there. Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you all.
So look forward to that to next month when we're going to talk about bones.
And as usual, if you have some questions or anything on the way out,